Welcome to Methodically Processing Systems. They say the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. It sounds nice on the face of it. After all, if you touch a hot stove and get burned once, why do it again and again? I think it's true in some cases. Yet, I've always felt uneasy about this notion. I doubt that it's true outside of a narrow range of situations. If it's so true, why do so many people do the same thing over and over again? Now, one of the smartest people that I know, his name is Joe Norman. He's a complexity scientist. He recently helped me understand why I've always felt uneasy with this idea. You see, with simple things like burning yourself on the stove, the saying is very much true. You touch the stove is hot, you burn yourself, and you'd have to be pretty crazy to do it again. If you play chess and play the same moves against the same opponent again and again, you're crazy. Your opponent will figure you out and beat you. If you answer the questions to a multiple choice quiz the same way every time, well, of course, you're going to get the same grade every time. But just because this works for stoves and chess and multiple choice quizzes, does it mean that it works for everything else? Does it apply to things like your relationship with your friends and spouses, your favorite books, your favorite movies? Are you insane for doing the same things throughout your life, like listening to this podcast every day on your commute or while you're in the shower? Surely there is something more complicated going on here. Just about all life that I'm aware of on this planet is engaged in some form of repetitive behavior. Yes, sometimes a bug will endlessly try to merge with a lamp at night. This might seem insane, but other than a few hiccups here and there, most of the time things seem to work rather well. We live in a world filled with complexity. Things that aren't simple are everywhere, and even the simple things feed into more complex things. In this environment, this palace of insanity, you can take comfort in knowing that doing the same thing again and again may be the sanest thing that you can do. One of the hallmarks of increasing complexity is our decreasing ability to make predictions about what will happen. You can predict when a stove will burn your hand, but can you predict exactly when the stock market will crash. As far as I'm aware, no one can, even if you might have an inkling of whether or not it will happen. With complexity, you can poke at something 10 times, expect one outcome, but get a completely different result each time. You might stroll through a park every day for 100 days and greet the same person as you walk past every single day, with no result. And then one day, on day 100, let's say, you greet that same person and you end up having a 30-minute conversation. You could even end up becoming friends, or even lovers. Try firing an arrow at a target. You can do it again and again, and you will most likely hit a different spot from the last every single time. If you do it enough times, you might get more precise and more accurate, but it will be rare to get the same exact result every time. In fact, you could argue that what some would call insanity is the foundation of all practice, like practicing firing an arrow. You keep repeating the same activity, the same task, and each time you do it, you notice something different about it. You learn. You gradually get better. You do the same thing long enough with some attention, and you just might become world class in that thing. You are repeating the same activity, but you're doing so in a complex environment. Randomness, therefore, ensures that no two practice sessions of yours will ever be exactly the same. You may be very focused one time, and you may be unable to focus the next. And to an outside observer, practice might look like insanity. They may wonder why you keep playing the same notes on the piano again and again. But what they can't perceive are the currents of randomness that are building up your skills at playing those exact same notes. As we discussed in a previous episode, Walt Disney made great cartoons for almost 2 decades before he found success. Was Disney insane? Possibly. But maybe he was more sane than the rest of us. In the complex world that we all live in, it may be safe to say that sanity may just be doing the same thing again and again and expecting a different result. I know so many people that don't reread the books that they own. They're all in a mad dash to achieve the unachievable. They want to read as many things as possible before they land in a pile of dirt, or turn into a pile of dirt, sitting in an urn. It's a sad thing to me, because these people see rereading books as a form of insanity, a waste of time. They think as if the world they live in is a frictionless vacuum, a simple place where once you read the book and you finish, you get all that you can possibly get out of it, and there is no need to go back. But we don't live in a frictionless vacuum. The world isn't simple. While rereading a book might seem like repeating the same activity, it isn't. There is variation. Each time you come back to a book, you are not the same person you were the last time that you read the book. The world is not the same world it was when you last read the book. Each time you experience it a little differently. Each time you flip a page, you make new discoveries in something that is old. That's the power of complexity and of the randomness that drives it. And this applies not just to books, but to just about anything that you can imagine. Your favorite movies, podcasts, whatever it is that you might enjoy. Your favorite food, your favorite music. In a complex system, it's nearly impossible to be doing the same thing again and again, exactly the same way, because so much is changing all the time. Even something as simple as burning your hand on the stove isn't quite as exactly the same from one incident to the next as it might seem. Now, don't try any of this at home, but every time you accidentally burn your skin or burn your hand, if the burn isn't bad enough, it will actually end up toughening up your skin as it heals. And so the next time you accidentally brush your hand against a stove or a hot pot, you'll be a little more resistant. There are even studies that show that old and experienced firefighters grow more resistant to working under extremely hot temperatures compared to ordinary but otherwise physically fit people. That's because we are complex living systems. It's nearly impossible for us to do the same thing again and again, even if it may look like that's what we are doing. Not only does our environment change, but we change from moment to moment. So if you feel guilty for picking up and rereading a book, know that the process of rereading is where some of your best insights can come from. The same is true for your favorite anything. Don't be ashamed of enjoying what you enjoy, again and again. As long as you give it some time and allow some change and variation to set in. I am giving you guilt-free permission to be sane and to make new discoveries in old things. When the world is changing around you, doing the same thing over and over again is a great way to test the system. After all, if you start changing what you do, it becomes even more difficult to understand cause and effect. There's just one more variable to deal with, something else that's changing all the time that's going to get in the way of figuring out what makes what happen. So repeating an activity is a great way to tinker. Now, tinkering, if you don't remember or are new to the show, is how you use small variations to achieve big things and make big discoveries. A great example of tinkering is a cook who makes the same dish over and over again, making small changes to the ingredients and to the proportions every single time. Sometimes the cook might do this with intent, and other times the cook might do this without even realizing it. And most of the time, the dish won't be spoiled. It'll just be subtly different from day to day. And every once in a while, the chef or the cook will discover something wonderful. Sometimes through accident and sometimes through intent, but always through the smallest adjustment, the fine tuning. But if the cook didn't repeat the same task, it would be impossible to have that subtle variation that eventually leads to that wonderful discovery. When you do the same thing with some variation, you at least have some semblance of hope that you are safer than doing something entirely new. At the same time, the small variations tap into the power of adaptation. Your muscles grow stronger, your nerves adjust, your brain grows familiar, and you become more confident. And these changes eventually yield new results. Sometimes they even yield sudden new results. If you've strength trained or even practiced an instrument, you know this. You do the same thing over and over again, and nothing seems to change for a while. You can't progress in your strength. You can't seem to get the phrasing of the piano piece. And then all of a sudden, one day, as if by magic, it all clicks. You progress. You nail the phrasing. Somehow, through mixing the old and some subtle new variations, you get some stellar new results. That is the power of repetition. The power of doing the same old thing again and again. Hey, thank you so much for listening. I know most everyone right now is stuck in some kind of lockdown or quarantine, and it's probably boring, maybe not so much fun, and probably a little bit difficult as well. So, I've got a couple of things for you to maybe keep you entertained at least. If you'd like to get the first season of the show, or if you'd like to get my book, System Wisdom, where you can learn more about some of the things that we talk about on this show a little bit more in depth, I've put links to both the first season and the book in the episode description for this episode that you are listening to right now. If you follow that link and as you check out either the first season or the book, you can type in the code STUCK, STUCK, when you check out, and you will get 50% off the price of the book or the price of the first season. So just a little something for you, and let me know if you have any troubles with it. But otherwise, I hope to see you in the next episode, or I hope you'll be listening to the next episode. And thank you again for listening. Take care.